this Chitrangada, son of Maharada Shantanu. And this war went on for many years. And finally, this earthly Chitrangada gave up his life. And the Chitrangada of the heaven became victorious and triumphant, and he returned back to the heaven, being peaceful of having uh, defeated and killed his competitor. He was not a competitor, but then this Gandharva Chitrangada thought like that. So therefore Chitrangada died. Naturally, Vichitravirya, his younger brother, became the king of the Bharata Vamsha. And unfortunately, Vichitravirya also did not live long. After his marriage, he ruled this world only for 7 years. And he married the two daughters of the king of Kashi. Although the king of Kashi had three daughters, he married two of them. But very soon he also died out of tuberculosis because he was very much attached to his wives. And he was uh, too much indulging in sense gratification with his wives, and because of which his lifespan reduced. He was attacked with tuberculosis. When one becomes too much, uh, when one too much indulges in sense gratification, he'll be affected by tuberculosis, especially sex life. And because of it, Vichitravirya also died untimely, early. So there's a short history concerning his marriage with the two daughters of Kashi Raja. So Chitrangada died and only Vichitravirya remained. Now how to continue the progeny? And Chitrangada died because he was not married, and obviously there's no progeny. Now Vichitravirya was the only remaining heir of the Bharata Vamsha. So Bhishmadev thought that I should somehow get my brother married. Bhishmadev is also the brother of Vichitravirya because Shantanu Maharaj through Ganga Devi gave birth to Bhishmadeva, and Shantanu Maharaj through Satyavati gave birth to Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Therefore, they were all brothers. Similarly, we'll also see shortly Satyavati through Parashara Muni gave birth to Vyasadeva. Here there's a common father for Chitrangada, Vichitravirya and Bhishmadev. And here there's a common mother for Chitrangada, Vichitravirya and Vyasadeva. So they were all brothers actually. So Bhishmadev, he thought that I should get my brother married because he had taken a vow of not marrying. That's why his name is called Bhishma. Bhishma means in Sanskrit terrible vow, a very strict vow. And the vow was he will not marry. He gave that word because Maharaja Shantanu, one time when he was about to cross a river, so he took a boat, and this boat was operated by Mother Satyavati. She was trained in boating to commute travelers. So when Maharaja Shantanu got into the boat of this Satyavati, he somehow became attracted to this Satyavati because her body was extremely fragrant. And this was a blessing she received from Parashara Muni. And for this there is another story. So once Parashara Muni, he met this Satyavati. He became attracted by her beauty and her chastity, and therefore he wanted to marry her. And through her he begot Vedavyasa. But she was um, actually she was not married at that time. She was a maiden. So she was concerned what will happen to her marriage. So Parashar Muni blessed her with maidenhood and virginity, even though she had given birth to Vedavyasa. And he also blessed her with a very special bodily fragrance. And he said, don't worry, this union of myself and you will bring about a very great soul, noble soul, and you will be glorified for that. So this act is not wrong, like that. So that's how she retained her virginity, her maidenhood, even though she begot Vedavyasa. So then Shantanu Maharaj met Satyavati, and um, he wanted to marry her. So he went to Satyavati's father and requested Satyavati, but but her father denied, saying that um, because Shantanu was a king and Satyavati was the daughter of a fisherwoman, rather she was known as the daughter of a fisherwoman and brought up by a fisherman. So Satyavati's father apprehended, was apprehensive to give her daughter, his daughter, because her son will not become the king. Generally, in the Kshatriya rules, the son of the king will become the king. So Shantanu Maharaj was a king, and Shantanu Maharaj's son is Bhishmadev. So naturally, Bhishmadev will become the king. So Satyavati's father was thinking, what will happen to my daughter's sons then? They'll be neglected. They'll not become the kings. So Shantanu Maharaj was not very happy about this unusual demand. He said, then I will not marry your daughter. He came back to the kingdom being dissatisfied. But Bhishmadev sensed that his father was not he was not very happy. So he sensed, and then he understood what was the reason. And then he goes on behalf of Shantanu Maharaj to Satyavati's father and requests Satyavati as his father's wife. But Satyavati's father puts the same demand that you are there, so how will my daughter's sons become the king? So, no, I'll not become the king, he said. Then will you give your daughter to my father? He said, still no. Why? Because you may not become the king, but your sons may claim the kingdom next. Then he said, okay, I'll not marry only. So that's how uh, he got the name Bhishma, one who took a very serious vow, terrible vow, that he will never marry for the sake of his father. So then Satyavati was married to Shantanu Maharaj and Chitrangada Vichitri Virya was born. When Shantanu Maharaj got to know that his son had made such a great sacrifice in his youthhood, he blessed him with Icha Marana, that you will not die until you desire to die. That was the brief history of Bhishma Deva. So that he would not marry. Now coming to this episode once again. So Bhishma Deva took a vow that he will not marry. So now Bhishma Deva wanted to marry Vichitravirya, his brother, to continue the progeny of the Bharata Vamsha and Shantanu Maharaj's dynasty. So he got to know that the king of Kashi had arranged a Swayamvara for his three daughters. And they were named Amba, Ambika and Ambalika. So he thought that if I abduct them and come, I can get them married to Vichitravirya. So he goes to the Swayamvara, and Bhishma Dev is very powerful. He is the topmost archer in the world, undefeatable, unparalleled in the world. So generally in Swayamvara, a lot of fighting happens between the belligerent kings. opposing kings. Everybody wants to have the hand of the queen or of the princess. So naturally, there'll be fighting. There'll be one princess, and there'll be maybe 10 kings, 50 kings, 100 kings. In this case, three princesses, three princes were there, princesses were there, and there were many, many kings who have come. These are in the hands of these three princesses who were very beautiful. So Bhishmadev came and abducted all the three princesses and then took them to his kingdom to get them married to Vichitravirya actually. But of them, Amba, the first daughter, she became attracted to Bhishmadev. But Bhishmadev said, no, I have taken this vow that I will not marry, so I am very sorry. And he said, rather I have brought you to get married to my brother. But unfortunately, Vichitravirya also rejected Amba because he said, actually Amba was already in a love affair with another king by name Shalva. So Bhishmadev, even knowing this, he still abducted her to get her married to Vichitravirya. So Vichitravirya denied, no, she already has an affair with somebody, so how can I marry? I'll not marry. So now Amba's position has become very painful. Vichitravirya is not going to marry. Bhishma is not going to marry. So then finally they settled that she goes back to Shalva. Then when she goes back to Shalva, he says, no, you have been abducted by somebody. Now how can I marry you? So this was the very strict Vedic system which was being followed, that if a girl, unmarried girl, is decided for somebody, liked by somebody, has some connection with somebody, or is fixed for somebody, contact of somebody, one male, finished. Nobody else will marry her. This was the chastity being maintained, purity being maintained. If one girl is being fixed for somebody, nobody else will marry that girl. So that is a question of chastity there. Then only there will be good progeny. There will be good progeny. Otherwise, no. So then Amba now became shelterless from all quarters and angles. Nobody is willing to marry her. So she became very upset. That's how she takes a vow that because Bhishmadev had actually disturbed her marriage alliance, so she took a vow that she will take birth and kill him once again and kill him. And that's how she becomes Shikandi in her next life. And then Shikandi tries to fight with Bhishmadev. So anyway, so Amba didn't marry. Therefore, the other two daughters, Ambika and Ambalika, were there. They were married to Vichitravirya. But Vichitravirya also died because he was, as I said, very attached to his wives. But 7 years he enjoyed so much with them, and he was infected with tuberculosis, and then he passed away. Now again, the Shantanu Vamsha is hairless, no sons to continue the dynasty. That was very serious, very serious. The whole Chandra Vamsha comes to an end, which is a very serious cause of anxiety. So then, Bhishma Deva and Mother Satyavati, they meet at one point and discuss some confidential matters. Finally, they come to the conclusion that Mother Satyavati should call her son, who is also the brother of Bhishma Deva, namely Vyasadeva. So Bhishma and Vyasadeva also were actually brothers. So they decided that they should call Vyasadeva to beget children from the wives of Vichitravirya. Because Vyasadeva happens to be the brother of Vichitravirya. And in emergency situation, Shastras do permit that the brother is allowed to have union with his wife to continue the progeny and the dynasty. So under these special circumstances, where there was no progeny in the Bharata Vamsha or the Shantanu Maharaj Vamsha, so Satyavati and Bhishmadev thought it wise after consultation, that Vyasadeva can be called to beget children from Ambika and Ambalika. And Vyasadeva was in Himalayas that time, doing a severe austerity. And he gave a word to his mother Satyavati, Mother, whenever you call, instantly I'll appear. Like we know Madhvacharya also he said, whenever mother you call, instantly I'll appear there. They all had such yoga siddhis. So, so when Satyavati summoned Vyasadeva, instantly he appeared from Himalaya to Hastinapura. And she had made him understand about the situation and told him that you should beget children as a special case through the womb of your brothers. So kindly do this favor and help and save the dynasty from ending. So Vyasadeva agrees. He says, okay, I'll come. You prepare them. So when Vyasadeva comes to meet Ambika, Ambika was the princess. So she thought that Bhishma will come, but Bhishma will not come because he too has taken a vow. So when she was prepared for meeting her husband, she was thinking of Bhishma Deva actually, that Bhishma Deva would come. Because he was also another brother. But then when she saw Vyasadeva, she was completely shocked. Because Vyasadeva directly came from Himalayas. And he was not shaved. And he was dark complexioned. And apparently his spiritual beauty was covered. He was a renowned sage. He was an incarnation of the Supreme Lord himself. But because he didn't keep himself clean and tidy, because he had taken a particular vow that he will not comb himself, he will not dress himself properly. He was under strict vows of austerity. So he was not clean, and therefore the princess was very, very uncomfortable. And there was also some bad smell coming from Vyasadev's body externally, although he was a completely transcendental person, unaffected by anything material. But she was very much affected, and therefore she closed her eyes out of fear. And afterwards, both of them come out. Then Satyavati was very eager to know what happened. Then Vyasadeva promised, my dear mother, don't worry, there'll be a good progeny. But only thing is, this son will be very powerful, having the strength of 10,000 elephants. But he'll be born blind. Because Ambika became afraid and she closed her eyes. Therefore, this son will be blind. But he'll have the power of 10,000 elephants, and that was Dhritarashtra. Then again, Satyavati was in dilemma. She became very concerned. How can a blind ruler, blind prince become the king, become the ruler of the entire Bharata Vamsha? So this is not okay, not acceptable. Then she told Vyasadeva, you should come once again and try to beget one more child at least. One qualified descendant to rule this world. So Vyasadeva said, Mother, whenever you call, I'll come once again. Let me now go back to my austerities. And then he disappears immediately. Then, within a month, again Satyavati calls him, and then he comes. And this time it is to the second wife of, this time to unite with the second wife of Vichitravirya, by name Ambalika. So Ambalika also, although she was mentally prepared, what to expect from Vyasadeva? He's not going to be clean, he's not looking beautiful, apparently materially, he is not clean shaved, everything. So although she was mentally prepared, but somehow when Vyasadeva came, somehow she could not. Now she also became terrified, horrified. Not as much as Ambika. So she didn't close her eyes, but she became pale, and she was caught with fear. So anyway, so then after their union, Mother Satyavati asked, "So so what is the result?" Then Vyasadeva said, "My dear mother, you will have we will have another good son, but righteous son. But unfortunately, Ambalika also became pale with fear. Therefore, this son also will be born pale. That's why he's called Pandu. Pandu means the pale one. That means little weak. So that's how we know Pandu also died very early. He also didn't live long. Then finally, mm, Mother Satyavati requests for the third time to Vyasadeva to beget another befitting son. Because they thought one son is still too less and is Pandu the pale one. So it is good to have one more son. So Vyasadeva said, okay, this will be the final request. I will oblige to. So once again he comes, and this time she says that you try to beget a son, qualification through Ambika once again. So somehow Satyavati convinces, but Ambika somehow was very horrified at the very first experience. She said, no, 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 not at all possible. Somehow she convinces her of the need of the continuation of Bharata Vamsha. So she agrees. To Satyavati, she agrees. So then Vyasadeva comes the second time to meet Ambika and to unite with her. That time, she plays a trick. She calls her maidservant and decorates her like a princess with all golden ornaments and very grand way, grand looking. And then she sends her instead of she going. And Vyasadeva comes straight from Himalayas and meets this girl, whose Vyasadeva knew. But anyway, he didn't stop. So he unites with this third time, but this time with the maid servant of Ambika. And she received Vyasadeva very nicely, gave nice food, hmm, nice reception, washed his feet, everything very nicely. And then uh, after their union, then Vyasadeva comes and tells his mother, this time there will be a very, very worthy, most righteous son for the Shantanu Vamsha, and he'll be named Vidura, the son of the maid servant. So Vidura was perfect, but still Vidura could not become the king because he was the son of a maid servant. Anyway, so then Pandu had to. Yeah, Krishna Ram got that Prabhupada. So Pandu was the only left higher now who can beget children. So Pandu through Kunti Devi begets through Kunti begets three brilliant children, and through Madri he begets two beautiful children. And that's another big history for that. And that's how the Bharata Vamsha continued through the Pandavas. So these five children of Pandu came to known as the famous Pancha Pandavas. So in this verse, it is described that Chitrangada was killed by the Gandharva Chitrangada, and Therefore, Satyavati, through Vyasadeva, had to beget children for the Shantanu Vamsha, and that we discussed now. So Shukadeva Goswami is describing here that this Vyasadeva, who's my father, instructed me in this great work of literature called Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva being the incarnation of the Lord, he selected me for instructing Srimad Bhagavatam and rejected his disciples headed by even Paila Rishi because I was free from all material desires. Therefore, he chose me to instruct Srimad Bhagavatam, the cream of all Vedic literatures. So, Vyasdev is well known as the incarnation of the Supreme, powerful incarnation of the Supreme Lord for bringing about these Vedic literatures to this world. And originally there was one Veda called Yajur Veda, but Vyasdev could foresee that in Kali Yuga, uh, people are not very intelligent and competent to understand Vedic knowledge and comprehend Vedic knowledge. Therefore, he thought it wise to divide the Vedas into four parts so that it becomes easy for distributing the Vedic knowledge. Because to instruct one person, but the entire spectrum of Vedic knowledge may be quite challenging. There's no capable person to understand. Therefore, he thought better let me make it into four divisions and spread the Vedic knowledge. So he selected four of his disciples and made them professors of the four Vedas. Rig, Yajur, Sama, Atharva. So he selected four of his advanced disciples and made them professors of these four departments of knowledge called Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. So they were Paila Rishi, Vaishampayana Rishi. So like that. Angira Rishi. But although Vyasadeva made them the head of all the four Vedic divisions of knowledge, he selected his own son, Shukadeva Goswami, as the recipient of the cream of all Vedic knowledge by namely Srimad Bhagavatam, because he was free from all material desires. So this is very important to note. Srimad Bhagavatam is the cream and essence of all Vedic knowledge, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentation on what is called as Brahma Sutras or Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra, Brahma Sutra is one of the philosophical theses of the six kinds of philosophical theses as explained in the Vedic texts. So there are six philosophical processes, of which five of them are not recognized. But the last one, called Vedanta Sutra, is very much recognized, and whose author is none other than Vedavyas himself. So, the five philosophical processes which are not recognized by the Vaishnava Acharyas are propounded by five other philosophers. I'll just describe them very briefly today. The first one is called the Mimamsa philosophy. It's also called Karma Mimamsa. So, this was propounded by one great rishi by name Jaimini. She was the proponent of the Mimamsa philosophy. And this Mimamsaka philosophy states, or rather stresses, more of fruitive activity. So, he said that if there is a God, even he is under the laws of fruitive activity or karma. Even God is subject to laws of karma. That is this Karma Mimamsa philosophy. he also says, or this philosophy also says, even if there is God, he is obliged to award the result of your action. You just got to perform your duty nicely. That's all. So God is obliged to bestow the result of your activity. So you don't have to necessarily worship God separately for being blessed with the result. You do your duty, you will get the result. So there is no need to become a devotee of God. Then further, uh, they also say, if one strictly follows moral principles, one will be recognized by the Lord and will be rewarded accordingly. Not that necessarily you have to worship the Lord separately. And they don't accept the principles of Bhakti Yoga. Instead, they stress a lot on performing one's prescribed duty. So all of these understandings emerge from the Karma Mimamsa philosophy as taught by Jaimini. More or less, actually, it is atheistic, denying God. Then the second philosophy is called Sankhya, which was propounded by one atheist Sankhya. And atheist Sankhya philosopher by name Kapila. So this is an atheist Kapila. So this philosophy analyzes material elements very scrutinizingly and concludes that material nature is the cause of this creation, cause of every material changes in this world. Material nature is the ultimate cause. Prakriti is the ultimate cause of this creation, which is obviously atheistic because Krishna says, Bhagavatam says, Acharyas say, even Shankaracharya says that the origin of creation is Narayana, Krishna. But this atheistic Sankhya philosophy tries to explain that there is no need of God as the origin of creation. Material nature itself is the cause of creation. It is self-generating. Like today's modern science says, it is self-generating. You don't require a person to create. It is self-generating. Like that. So they analyze all the material elements. Even Bhagavatam analyzes. Even the theistic Sankhya also analyzes material elements. Origin of material elements. Creation of different material elements, 24 material elements. But finally it attributes that there is a supreme soul who is the cause of all the material creation of material elements and its interactions and its developments. So anyway, that's the second philosophy. Third one is called Nyaya philosophy. So this was propounded by philosophers like Gautama and Kannada. This is called the famous Paramanuvada or the atomic theory. Just like, so this philosophy says ultimately this world is a combination of atoms. It's called atomic theory, the theory of atoms. So they accept the combination of atoms as the original cause of creation. Again, it is atheistic. Simply by combination of atoms, life doesn't come into existence. And atoms also don't combine by themselves. But the atheistic theory says that atoms combine by themselves in different combinations and bring about the expanse of this creation. And interestingly, at a certain mature combination of atoms, even life comes. These are all atheistic Paramanuvada theory, Nyaya philosophy, which is not accepted by the Vedic followers. Then the fourth one is called the famous, well-known Mayavada philosophy. So this philosophy simply says everything is a big illusion. Finished. Nothing to discuss. Everything is a big illusion. Jagat Mithya. This world is a big illusion. Then what is Satya? Brahma Satyam. But the understanding of Brahman is also different. They talk about the Nirvisesha, Nirvikalpa Brahman, the impersonal Brahman. Impersonal Brahman as the cause of everything. They say Brahman is the cause of everything. Impersonal Brahman effulgence is the cause of everything. So it's called Nirvisheshavada. And this was taught by Ashtavakra Muni. And this is also not the right understanding because uh, uh, their understanding of Brahman is also not the spirit as we understand. Some impersonal spirit. Now, how can impersonal spirit bring about a personal creation? They don't have sufficient arguments for that. And they declare that, see, they say Brahman is Satyam. Then how? They also say Brahman is the cause of material world, Prakriti. They say Brahman is Satyam. Then how? Brahman, which is the source of Prakriti or material creation, is false. Actually, they're illogical. If they would have said even Brahman is also Asatya, fine. See how they're contradicting. Brahman is Satyam, but what comes from Brahman is false. So logically they are wrong. So this world is Mithya, but Brahman is Satya. How it can be possible? World is Mithya, the Brahman also must be Mithya. Or if Brahman is Satyam, world also is Satyam. That is Vaishnava understanding. So therefore this Mayavadi philosophy is also wrong, which declares everything is illusion. The last one was proposed by Vedavyas called Vedanta Sutra, which is the right philosophical conclusion and analysis of Brahman and Prakriti. It's called Vedanta Sutra, and the teacher of this Vedanta Sutra is Vyasadeva. The Vedanta Sutra is also called Brahma Sutra because the first inquiry is, who am I? What is this? Next is, what is this creation? And what the third question is, what is the purpose of my creation and the creation of this world? So that is called Brahma Jignasa. Brahma Jignasa. Jignasa means inquiry. Inquiry about what? Brahma. Brahma Jignasa, about Brahman. Inquiry about this spirit. What is the origin of spirit? What is the origin of this creation? So that's called Brahma Jignasa. Atato Brahma Jignasa. And because Brahma Sutra discusses this subject matter, therefore it is called Brahma Sutra. The subject matter of Brahman. And what is Brahman in depth? So there are two kinds of Brahman again, Brahman and Parabrahman. Parabrahman is the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, Narayana, Krishna. And from him comes the tiny Brahman called the Jiva, Shakti. And from the Supreme Brahman called Parabrahman comes this material creation. So the Supreme Brahman or Parabrahman called Krishna or Vishnu is the origin of all material creation and the origin of even this Brahman. So in this way, Vyasadeva explains this in a theistic way, and finally concludes that this Brahman should separate himself from this Prakriti or entrapment of matter and become liberated by taking shelter of the Parabrahman. Become liberated from the effects of this Prakriti, from the entanglement of this material Prakriti. He should release himself by surrendering onto the Supreme Brahman. So that is the subject matter of Vedanta Sutra. How this tiny Brahman is entangled, how to get out of this entanglement by taking shelter of the Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. So this is the subject matter of Vedanta Sutra. So that's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita also, Vedesha Sarvair Aham Eva Vedyaha. From all the Vedas and Vedanta Sutra, I am to be known. So Vyasadeva brings to this conclusion. Therefore, this is the only bona fide version which all the Vaishnava Acharyas accept. So Brahma Sutra Padaischaiva Hetu Madbir Vinishyataihi. Krishna also says in the 13th chapter, this Brahma Sutra Padaischaiva Hetu Madbir Vinishyataihi. That means, Hetu means cause. What is the cause of this creation? What is the cause of Brahman? That is the subject matter of Brahma Sutra. And that's what the Vedas are explaining. Vinishchita, it should be understood in a very firm, conclusive, reasonable, logical way. That's why hetu mat. Hetu also means logical, reasoning. That's why this Vedanta Sutra is also part of what is called as uh, Nyaya Prasthana. Nyaya Prasthana means uh, one of the sources of knowledge, Vedic knowledge. There are three sources of Vedic knowledge: Nyaya Prasthan, Shruti Prasthan, and Smriti Prasthan. So Vedanta Sutra is called Nyaya Prasthana because it explains everything very logically and scientifically and full of reasoning. So Krishna says, therefore, through all the logic and reason, you should actually establish me. Hetu Brahma Sutra Padashcheva. Vedantakrit Vedavid Evacha Aham. Vedesha Sarvai Aham Eva Vedyaha. Vedantakrit Vedavid Evacha Aham. Through the Vedanta Sutra, one should establish me, Krishna is saying. So that's why Vyasadeva establishes this truth and conclusion from the Vedanta Sutra, and therefore his version is accepted as the most bona fide version. And for the first time, Vyasadeva explained this to his own son, this Vedanta Sutra, to his son Shukadeva Goswami. And the Vedanta Sutra is full of conclusions of glorification of Vishnu, position of Vishnu, the ultimate status of Vishnu. Vishnu as the ultimate absolute truth. So this is a very desirable and the right conclusion. And that was taught to to his son, Shukadeva Goswami. And Vyasa selected his son because his son was free from all material desires. Therefore, to receive Srimad Bhagavatam or to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, actually one should be free from all material desires. Then one becomes an eligible student to understand Bhagavatam. So I'll stop here. Granthraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.